Hello, this is Angela with Parker's Permaculture. Today I'm going to take you along to one of my favorite events in Portland, Oregon. It's something that I haven't been able to go to for a few years because of the pandemic, but something that we did every year when my kids were little, and I look forward to very much. It is the annual collection of the Vaux Swifts at Chapman School. I'm going to give you a little guide of how to go and visit the Swifts here in Portland, what that is like, and also talk about why Vaux Swifts are so cool and why I like them so much, and why these kinds of community events are really important if we're going to build those resilient communities. It's that wonderful overlap of urban spaces and wildlife and community engagement. All three of those things come together and form a really wonderful experience where we can see the potential for building sustainable and resilient communities, and that's one of the reasons that I like it so much, not just because I'm a giant bird nerd. So Vaux Swifts are a diminutive little species of brown, kind of inconspicuous bird with kind of a taupe pale chest to them. They are related to swallows and swifts. I'm wearing my vest in honor of them today. But they're just a less vibrant version of the beautiful barn swallow with its iridescent colors, or even the green swallow. They're just, or even the purple martin. Vaux Swifts are just a little cigar-shaped bird. I don't want to call them the ugly duckling of the swift and swallow family, but they are kind of a drab little bird that you wouldn't really notice if it wasn't for this fascinating behavior that they have this time of year. Vaux Swifts are insectivores, and they fly with a really kind of sharp and abrupt wing movement, almost bat-like in their wing movement, as they dive and use these sharp cutting motions to catch insects in the air. They're a really important species, all of the swifts and swallows are, for eating those small bugs that bother us so much, like gnats and mosquitoes, and keeping those populations controlled. They're a vital part of the ecosystem. Now, in the wild, Vaux Swifts spend the spring and summer months up here in the Pacific Northwest, up into Canada, and they typically nest in snag trees. And I've talked in the past about why it's really important to have those wild spaces where we leave dead material, particularly snag trees about. They are wonderful habitat for all kinds of wildlife, not just bees, but all kinds of other wildlife, including the Vaux swift. Vaux swifts actually can't perch like your typical songbird. They cling to the side of the interior cavity of hollowed out trees, and they build their nest along the wall using spit. Lots of cave and cavity nesting birds do this. They use their own saliva to help create a nest. And when the parental season is done for them, they get ready to go back to Central and South America for the winter. But before these little tiny swifts make their journey south to Central and South America for the winter, they congregate in large numbers, forming large flocks that will then move as a unit together on their migration. Traditionally, they would congregate within large snag trees. However, humans have done a really good job of removing a lot of their habitat, removing those snag trees, because obviously dead standing trees pose a danger to humans, right? That's something that we're concerned about. And also, we're just clearing and removing so much habitat to begin with. The swifts have adapted. They've adapted to nesting in chimneys. They might nest in your chimney in your house, and if they do, there's lots of good. I'll actually link to Audubon's link below where they talk about what to do if you have Vaux swifts in your chimney during nesting season. But as we get into the month of September, they congregate in really large chimneys, and one of those locations is the chimney for the boiler at Chapman School. And they congregate just through the month of September, collecting more and more of them every night, roosting inside the chimney, clinging to the wall, until they are in great enough numbers and they are ready and the conditions are right for them to leave. And so you can see potentially as many as 35,000 swifts in one place. There was at one point in time, the count indicated that Chapman School was the largest collection of Vaux swifts ever recorded. Typically their numbers since 2004 have been dwindling for reasons that aren't clear. Things like feral cats and habitat destruction are probably the top two causes, because those are the top two causes of decline of all songbirds. But also, other factors include things like large use of insecticides. If our Vaux swifts don't have things to prey on, like mosquitoes and gnats and other small flying insects, then they can't feed their babies. they can't survive. And so when we use those broad spectrum insecticides, we are not only reducing the number of the pests that we want to get rid of, we're also reducing the numbers of the beautiful, wonderful wildlife that feeds on those insects. When folks say like, ooh, bugs, when I look at bugs, what I see is bird food. As somebody who is very, very much an avid birder, an avid bird watcher, in fact, my capstone in college was on songbird migration in Belize. Birds are totally my jam. And so when I look at bugs, I don't get grossed out. I just see, yes, that's food for birds. That is an abundance of bugs means an abundance of birds. So the numbers of the swifts have been declining, but the swift count is done by Volunteers for Audubon every night in September. And you can find it on their website. Again, I'll link below, where the numbers of swifts coming in to roost in the chimney are counted every night. And this is the peak week. I think there were 11,000 swifts counted last night. So we are going tonight. The weather is great. It's going to be lovely. And not only do we get to see the swifts who start to circle and come in, and then they swirl and swirl and swirl, and then all go down into the chimney, but also there are peregrine falcons who know that the swifts are congregating there, and they use it as a convenient hunting ground. So there's a little bit of melodrama playing out every year. Now I'm going to take you with me and give you some tips if you want to go see the swifts at Chapman School, because there are upwards of 2,000 Portlanders who go every night in September, and it can be very crowded. And there are some things you should be aware of if you want to go, some tips to make the trip more enjoyable for you. And it is really enjoyable. It's a lovely evening, and I hope you'll come along with me.
Our destination this evening is in affluent Northwest Portland at the Chapman Elementary School, 1445 Northwest 26th Avenue. This part of town is notoriously difficult to find parking. Be aware that while Chapman Elementary School is located west of Northwest 25th Avenue between Northwest Pettygrove and Northwest Raleigh, you will do best to find parking a few blocks away and walk. The school is connected to Wallace Park, and I find it much easier to park on Northwest 25th at the corner of Wallace Park and walk through the park at a diagonal toward the school. We find for us it is much easier to get parking than trying to get closer to the school. We spend far less time walking than we would driving around looking for a spot. Also note that the restrooms are located in Wallace Park itself. This part of town has all become metered parking, so use the Parking Kitty app or bring your credit card. Parking is free after 7 p.m., but I highly recommend getting there about 5:30. We like to pack blankets and chairs, a picnic dinner, binoculars, and sweaters. It gets chilly after sunset. Again, arriving at 5:30, you see that the area is not very crowded yet, and you will have your pick of spots. It's tradition for kids to bring pieces of cardboard and slide down the hill below the viewing area. It's a wonderful pastime that keeps them busy until the swifts start coming in at dusk. This has to be one of my favorite September outings for folks of all ages. There's lots of signage and also a table full of Audubon volunteers with specimens and all kinds of information to help you understand the Vaux's swifts, their migration, and their habitat needs. One of the things my kids found really interesting was that the swifts will catch ballooning spiders in the air. It's one of their favorite foods. Those spiders that are floating on a little gossamer string of cobweb in the air, they catch them right out of the breeze and eat them. By about 6 p.m., it's starting to get busy. Folks are rolling in with their friends, their picnic blankets, and a dinner. Be aware that this is school property and cannabis, tobacco, and alcohol are prohibited. There's also a little caterer at the top of the hill where you can purchase snacks. Audubon recommends arriving an hour before the 7:30-ish sunset. However, as I said, for us, arriving at 5:30 tends to work better. It's much easier to find parking and get a nice, comfortable spot and have plenty of time for the kids to play sliding down the hill and for us to enjoy our dinner. The swifts begin to move in about 40 to 60 minutes before sunset. You can see them begin to circle and come in small numbers. Closer to sunset, they begin swirling in much larger numbers. This is the best time to potentially see 1 or 2 peregrine falcons attempting to hunt in this area. The birds begin to enter the chimney about 10 to 30 minutes before sunset, and the entire flock moves in within the span of about 10 to 15 minutes. It's over very quickly once they start getting serious about moving down into their roost for the night. It was so fascinating to see the birds spiraling in intricate geometric shapes before they began moving down into the chimney. I loved how the kids in the area were super excited. There was lots of clapping and cheering. Everybody seems in awe of what is happening here. For me, one of the things I love best about the Swifts at Chapman School, besides the awe-inspiring display of nature, is that it's an opportunity for folks in the city to gather, for Portlanders to come together as a community every night throughout September to enjoy this spectacular display of nature, to connect with each other, to find common ground, and to learn to respect and be in awe of nature, and hopefully want to conserve and protect it more.
Like you're new to Oregon. Dude, I got so many little tiny
Wow.
For coming with me to see the Vaux Swifts at Chapman School. I hope you can find those opportunities in your community to see the interplay between nature, to see the way community supports nature, values and appreciates nature, where we have those not quite permaculture zone forests. We have really urban spaces, really heavily utilized spaces where wildlife says, you know what, you need to make room for me. And we try to honor that as a community. It brings the community together. It helps us connect with each other. It helps us learn to value and appreciate wildlife and hopefully make more efforts to conserve it. As the chickadee sings in the background. I'll be back really soon. Please check out my Patreon down below. And also I have a PayPal if you're interested in supporting the work of this channel. Thanks.